Hi everyone, happy Sunday. So I am going to try to color a picture. I have one picked out. This big package that's partially in the way of the camera is a new marker set I picked up either in January or December, I can't remember. Anne at Anne's Colorful Life had featured these on her channel in a video, and I'm always on the lookout for budget-friendly marker sets that don't yellow, and this was a really good price for the number of markers, so I thought I'd get it and we try it out. If anything, the storage box it comes in looks fantastic, and it's a good price for the box and the markers. Now I don't know if that price has changed as it's been a while, but these are the FSM markers. So hopefully these don't yellow. That's the biggest thing that we're going to test today. I wanted to show the packaging because they packaged them really well. They've got these long foam strips that run along the side of the case. And so I was honestly a little impressed by the packaging for this. Like, it just wasn't tossed in a box. It actually has some really nice foam around it to protect the box. So that's the reason I hadn't taken it all out yet. Now, she may have I have not had a chance to watch anybody's videos lately, so it may turn out that these are actually yellowing kind of markers, but oh well. At least we're gonna just try it out ourselves. So I got the 168 colors, and yeah, I was I was feeling like buying something at that point. But look at this box, y'all. Like, it's got a little latch to it. It's got a hinged lid to it. Like, the box itself was, you know, even if the markers turn out awful, like, the box itself is actually a really nice storage box. So, you get this little paper that has interesting directions and tips. But it also has the 168 colors listed. It has where you can swatch them on the back, but this is like a glossy kind of paper. I'd rather swatch them myself. If I do hopefully a supply haul later this month, I should be able to get these swatched out at that point. But they do have a colorless blender. And so these are the bullet tip and the chisel tip. And this is what the actual markers look like. They feel a little smaller in the hand than your other markers like your Cali Arts and your Ohuhus. I don't know how they're done in here. I don't know if there is... Oops, sorry, didn't mean to hit the mic. I think there's a little plastic thing at the bottom in squares that they easily slide in and out of. So we're going to try these out today and see how they go. Like I said, just because they seem like smaller markers, maybe they won't last as long, but that's fine. If these work well, I'll be using them for probably a lot of color by number, and then pictures like this. I use all my markers pretty interchangeably, so we'll put this over here, and then I'll show you guys the page, and then I may be coloring and doing a voiceover the rest of the way. So we're in Easy Spring by Joshua Dunbar, and I am going to color this picture. When I did the flip through on Friday, if you watched that, you noticed that I really like this picture, so wanted to go with this. Let me take a few minutes on pulling out the markers, figuring out what colors I want to use, and we'll get started. So I finally got my colors picked out, and turns out I may not have to speed this up at all because this picture actually went relatively quickly, which, is the whole concept of the easy coloring series, Michelle. So I end up going with the new markers over the pastel. I decided to do pastel pencils. And I really should have wrote down the colors of the markers, but I didn't. And I put them all back in the box without thinking about it. Oh well. So what I typically would have done here is actually just do a pale yellow like pastel background, but because I'm trying out these markers, I wanted to color the background with them. They're fresh, brand new markers. I kind of wanted to push them a little bit. Sorry, what is up with my voice? Kind of wanted to try some different things with them, go over a big, background like this with the markers just to see what they can do. Sorry, needed a quick drink. A couple things I noticed with these markers. They are not overfilled. At least the ones I used in this picture, and I probably used at least a dozen different colors, and not one of them did the massive like bleeding, blotting that like really juicy, almost overfilled markers tend to do. I was a little nervous about that. These don't feel overfull at all. However, because of that, I am curious actually how long these markers will last. So it will be interesting to start testing them out, probably with color by numbers and using a certain group of the markers just to see how long they last. So good news is they don't bleed all over the page and make a mess. And Amazon paper sucks up markers a lot anyway, so if you kind of have overfull, super juicy markers, you have to be careful when you use them on a page like this because they'll easily bleed into sections you don't want them to bleed into. Definitely wasn't an issue with these markers. They tended to be on the drier. I wouldn't call them super juicy, but they laid down color very nicely. It wasn't streaky at all. So they're a little drier than, I guess, brand new budget markers I typically come across. However, like I said, they weren't streaky. I got plenty of good solid color from this marker. Didn't get the feeling like it was about to run out or anything. For those of you that are sensitive to smells and noises, these did feel a little squeaky. Again, lending to that a little bit drier type marker. They squeaked a little bit more, I guess, than other markers like Cali Art and Ohuhu's tend to. And they've got a bit of a scent about them. It's not that strong alcohol marker scent that some markers come across. It's not an unpleasant smell. It's just a weird smell. And I had even my husband smell it just to see if he could tell, like, what I could compare it to, and neither one of us could really figure it out. It's not super unpleasant to me, but there is a scent to these markers, and it's slight. It's not overpowering like a Sharpie or anything would be, but it is there. So if you're sensitive to those things, I just want to go ahead and share my experience with those. So overall, though, looking back at this picture, and I was really pretty happy with how the markers laid down. I wish I had picked one of these softer yellows for the background. This one looked, I haven't fully swatched the markers yet, so I can't really say for sure like whether the colors match the caps, but like this one I felt was going to be a really softer, this actually says pastel green, and as we can all see, this is not a green by any stretch. But it definitely didn't look as pale as the cap on the marker. So wish I went with a slightly lighter background, but it turns out okay. So yeah, it has been a minute since actually I've done real-time coloring. But I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time, I guess, to talk about what all's been going on. All in all, this took me less than an hour to do this and the pastel pencils. So I was very pleased with that. And once I got through the color picking part of this picture, I actually really enjoyed doing it. And if I wasn't starving right now, I probably would immediately pick another picture and start coloring. But I am hungry and really need to eat lunch. I did want to try, I wanted to play some computer games today too, so I'm trying to keep things a little balanced today. Um, I have been doing some color by colors coloring in Kira Shoshneva's Fantasy Women. I actually have had a couple evenings where I've done pictures out of that book. I really like using the Bic Intensity, Bic whatever they're being called right now, the Bic permanent markers. The colors for the most part match up really well, but I usually have to pull a peach from marker sets like this in order to get, like, the peach color is almost a little too pink in that set. So for true peach color, I usually have to just pull from a set like this to get that color. But for the most part, I'm really enjoying doing that. It's very low key. Don't have to think too much about the colors, and I can kind of sit in there and do my thing. And so this is really the first non color by number page that I have colored in. It's been months. It's been months. Probably October or November, to be quite honest. So I was really glad to get back into it, and of course be able to do a picture out of this book, which is of course, as I said earlier, Joshua Dunbar's newest book, Easy Spring. And it definitely does not feel like spring around here, but it is warmer than it usually is this time of year. January and February tend to be our really gray months in Tennessee, where we usually have our coldest weather. A lot of snow and ice. We'll have like single digit temps and stuff. But since that cold snap we had right around Christmas, um, we haven't really had the temps go down that much. They've been staying pretty much around. They've been going up a little, but pretty much from the 40s to the 60s for highs. It's actually pretty rare that we get under freezing at night, or if we do, we only stay in like the low 30s, high 20s. So I haven't had to worry so much about the not my cats outside. So that's been good. I do play around a little bit, like here with this pansy. I'm assuming this is a pansy. I just picked a pansy color off of the Google images, and so that's where this dark purple's coming from. With the chipmunk, I also try using 3 different browns just to see, not necessarily blending. I don't know if these markers are juicy enough to blend. Um, You'll see with the chipmunk. It's good if you're using like 2 or 3 different color markers and you're not too worried about all of them blending together. I don't think they're juicy enough for that, but if you just like using multiple colors of markers and you don't mind like harsh edges and stuff like that, then these should work fine. But I would not consider these blending markers by any stretch. Cali Arts, you need a pretty juicy marker in order to usually get a good blend, in my experience. And these just didn't do very well in terms of looking like they were blending on the chipmunk. The colors really kind of stayed separate. Though if you're using 2 shades really close to each other, you can probably get what looks like, a pretty decent kind of blend. I don't know if that makes any sense. So hopefully it does. And I lost track of what I was saying. Oh, but it's, just been unseasonably warm. I can't complain too much. It's still been pretty gray. Like, it's pretty sunny today, but it's cool. It's definitely not like want to be outside kind of weather. And But the cats love the sun because it spills in, and this is why I struggle with a lot of lighting in my videos. Is my office gets a lot of light during the day, and especially as the day goes on, it gets brighter and brighter in here because my I'm in the front of the house, which faces west, and so as the day goes on, like, it gets brighter and brighter in here until the sun gets close to setting, then it, gets darker. So just really depending on what time of day I'm coloring and how it looks outside, I struggle a lot with my uh, video being overly bright. And so yeah, still haven't quite figured that out, but just haven't had any time to really think about that, to be quite honest. So um, that doesn't really become an issue unless I'm using like the pastel pencils, because you guys will see it on here a little bit, but I took the finished picture in a different room with more regular light, typical lighting, and you can see the shading a lot more in a darker setting than you can, because I don't use hugely different colors. It looks a little more subtle when it's this bright, like, lighting. So when you see the final picture, you'll see like what it really looks like if you were physically looking at the page, I guess. So yeah, I January was a tough month. I think I said in the last color in chat, like, I took that certification exam right at, it's been a month and a week, roughly. And it just feels like it was 2 or 3 months ago. Things have been so busy. And wasn't last week, but the week before, the 2 weeks before this past week, I had a really hard time. Like, I was really struggling with just having to give everything I had to focusing, and just there was all kinds of stuff that needed to be done during the day, and just being so wrung out and so wore out, and it was really starting to get to me. This past week was better. And come to find out, like, it's not just me, it's other team members as well. So fortunately, one of the things I really like about our group is our managers. They're a lot more hands-on than I'm used to, and there's nothing wrong with that, and just something I've got to get used to. I'm used to having managers that are typically like, okay, here's what I need you to do, go do it. In this case, my direct manager, checks in with me a lot, which is actually a whole lot more useful right now because I'm still learning. I'm not even 6 months into my job yet, and there's still a lot I have to learn. So it's great to have her check in, because then I feel like I'm not interrupting her all day long, because those are the times that I can ask questions. She just, wants to make sure I'm not stuck on anything. And they're also very aware of our workload and making sure that we're not taking on more than we agreed to, I guess. In my field, in digital marketing, well, I guess in a lot of fields, you have to be when you have like stakeholders involved and you're doing like emails for other people and stuff, you have to really learn how to say no. Or say we can do that, but something else has to be pushed down the list. You have to be really good at being able to push back. Otherwise, you will very easily get used to saying, sure, yes, I can take on more and more, and then just getting to the point where you can't get anything done because you've got so much going on. But I've always had good luck with managers that are actionable, and if I am not getting the response that I need, that I can go to my managers and get the support that I need from my managers to back me up. I've been very fortunate in having that since in my previous job and then in this one as well. They're really good at they're already identifying that we are doing way more than we had planned at the start of the year, and so we're already in conversations to determine what needs to take priority and what doesn't. So, it's good to have. It's different for me, but it's not a bad different. It's a good difference, just something I've got to get used to. Lot of things about the culture in this job are drastically different than what I'm used to, but not in a bad way, just in a different way. And some of it can be frustrating at times when you're in a different work environment than you're used to. But and like I said, I think a lot of that was coming up a couple weeks ago. Just I was like, I was starting to feel like I could actually, accomplish some things, and then like I got a project that was supposed to be simple, and it just got complex really fast, and I felt like I didn't have enough knowledge to be able to match the complexity. I was having to do a lot of trial and error, and it was just which is how things, again, it's an environment thing, it's a culture thing, and it's not just me that does that. And so I struggled with that a lot, and I I am not trying to be I'm not really trying to be intentionally vague, but I don't want to really advertise where I'm working. I don't mind talking about the fact that I'm doing email marketing, and it's like an educational, like a training and certification type of email marketing, pushing for certifications and things like that. But I'm not trying to be intentionally vague, not too much, but it's a little hard without giving away things. And so, anyway, so last week was a little better though. Well, it had to be because my personal life really kind of took over what capacity I had. And so, as you guys can see, before I get started on this, I am using 3 different types of browns, like a really dark chestnut brown, a medium type brown, and then a light, a little bit darker than tan, kind of like a potato brown color for most of his fur. I was trying to look at a picture from Google while I was doing this, to really try to get him to look sort of like a chipmunk. I don't know how well I did, but as you can see here, I wasn't trying to really blend with I was using the bullet tip a lot on the edging, so I wasn't trying to blend a lot, but it wasn't blending very much anyway. If I really wanted to try these out blending, I would use the chisel tip, and so I can't say 100% for sure, but just based on the little bit I use them, I don't think I will get the results that I would really want here if I did try blending them, unless, and there's 168 markers in this set, and I gotta say, I'll be curious when I swatch them to see like how many colors I have of each, but like I feel like there's a fairly nice representation of yellows and like yellow oranges, a lot of reds, a lot of greens, which I'm excited about because greens and light blues tend to be the markers that I run out of first. Well, I take that back. Also orange. And it seems like this set has a pretty good variety of those. Some nice blue grays too. But anyway, I'm hoping to do a supply. I don't know if we'll do the books. It's a pretty big stack of books, but we'll probably still do some books. But I really want to show you guys the supplies I picked up. I haven't done anything with them, but I got some more watercolors from Dreamland Watercolors back in October. The shimmer paints I love. They came out with some other colors close to Christmas. I picked up the set that was released then, and then this new marker set. And that's really supply wise all I've really bought. It's been way more books than supplies at this point. So, anyway, so yeah, last week. When was it? It was Monday night. So Scamper, who usually prefers her daddy over me, I've mentioned that we've been having a lot of problems with her for the past year getting her to eat. She's been dropping. She's very bony. Like, we're having trouble keeping her weight on, keeping her appetite up. And the whole time my vet's been saying it's because she has really severe arthritis, and so we've been treating it with pain, gabapentin pain medication, and that and a pain shot each month seem to really keep her stable. Like, she's been stable. She hasn't really been putting on any weight though, and I'll be honest with y'all. This whole time I've been wondering if there's something else going on, and I've said as much to my husband that, I just have a feeling there's something else here. It's just, well, I'll get to why I feel so guilty here in a minute, but anyway, she had started last month or so. She has started laying on me during the night, and which is weirdly unusual for her because she normally does not lay on me at all, ever. And she was doing it early in the mornings, like she was hungry, trying to get me up out of bed to feed her. But here in the last few weeks, she's taken more to laying on me during the night, and she'll just rest on my hip or something if I'm on my side. I try to lay on my back to give her more space to lay. There's usually plenty of room because I am definitely a chunky gal, so but usually early in the morning I have to roll on my side because my back's hurting, and so I try to find a compromise as best I can. And so I was on my side, and I don't know what woke me up, but I don't know if she jerked. Like, her body jerked around or something woke me up, and I reached down to touch her, and normally she's all perched up on my hip, and I noticed like part of her had kind of slid down to the bed, like her back half, and I was like, okay, that's weird. Normally she doesn't lay like this, but I was half asleep, wasn't really thinking about it. And a couple minutes later, she just slips right off the bed and hits the floor, and like I could feel her literally just slide off me and hit the floor, and I was like, that's very unusual for her. Even with the gabapentin making her a bit loopy, I've found a dose that makes her a little wobbly, but not like that bad. So I immediately get up and look and see what she's doing, and she just looks like surprised, and she's just kind of like her head's wobbling around a bit, and I was like, what is going on? And so I picked her up and I brought her in another room, and I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. I really was like, I think something's wrong. And I put her on the floor, and she just starts like walking in a circle, counterclockwise. She does that about 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, what is going on? And I was immediately like, oh my gosh, she's had a stroke. We've had one other cat before that was, and she was flopping over a bit. She was way more wobbly than she typically is, and her head was like kind of bobbing back and forth, and she was kind of looking around like, I don't know, just she seemed very loose and floppy, and definitely not like she is even with the gabapentin. And we've had a cat like that before who was falling, like tilting over on one of her sides and flopping a lot, and we thought she had a stroke. Fortunately, hers was just a wax buildup in her ear, but Scamper was acting even different from that, and I really was like, I think she's had a stroke. And so I'm trying to call my vet. They have an on-call vet, and I, of course, hated calling her at 3 a.m. or whatever time it was, but a stroke's an obvious emergency. And it is always, if they don't call back in 30 minutes, then, go to the emergency vet. Well, the closest emergency vets to me are in Nashville. There's Blue Pearl and Nashville Vet Specialists. And there used to be one in Hendersonville, Goodlettsville, which is right on the outskirts of Nashville and closer to me, but they've since closed. And that's okay, because the last time I took a pet to them, I took Tiger there, they said that they weren't, I guess, a fully equipped emergency vet. And so they were like, you're going to have to take him on to Blue Pearl, which was on the other side of Nashville. And it was like I had to go to 2 different emergency vets. And that was when he had the urinary blockage. And so then we ended up going back to my vet for surgery. And it was crazy. So I was already up getting dressed. I knew we were going to Nashville. I wasn't, because, I had no idea what they can do for cats that have strokes or anything like that, but obviously I knew it, there's always a possibility she could have another one, or that it's moving around, or, and like I said, she was pretty wobbly at that point. So get her in the car and off we go. And it took, thankfully, that time of morning, there's no traffic. So it took us maybe about an hour and 15 minutes to get there. And we ended up going to Nashville Vet Specialists because they were a little bit closer. And hadn't been to their office before. And had to go through a check-in process and stuff. And they got her back there and waited a little bit. And they come out and brought her with them. It had been, I don't know, a couple hours at that point after all that had happened. And they said they took her blood pressure. It wasn't crazy high. And when they brought her in there, it'd probably been 2 or 3 hours. Like, all of a sudden, she's walking more normal. She's still a little more wobbly than she should be, but she's definitely better than she was, 2 or 3 hours prior. And I was like, okay, she does look better. And I told them what happened and everything. And they were like, it's looking like a real possibility that she had a mini stroke, which I guess is, not as dangerous as like a major stroke, obviously, but she did have one, and they were pretty sure she had one, but the fact that she is already improving means, it was fairly minor. The frustrating part apparently about cats with strokes, if it's not blood pressure related, there's just not a lot they can do. As long as it's not a major stroke, the cat, or, well, depending on what kind of stroke it is, the cats can usually recover. There's one on Instagram I follow, called a cat called Steve. He looks almost just like Leroy. And he uses like the pet communication buttons to talk. I'll have to see if I can figure out what his Instagram account is. Maybe link it in the description. But he had a stroke a while back. And it took months for him to recover. But he did. And he's like doing great. And she was already bouncing back. So they were just like, there's nothing, we don't typically do like blood thinners for cats. There's nothing really we could do. There's a chance that she could have another one. There's a chance she could have a big one. The only thing they can really do is try to see if it's related to something else, like cancer or any other, like kidney disease. Sometimes can increase their chance of strokes. Trying to see if there's another issue going on that's increasing her chance for strokes, and trying to mitigate that to lower the risk. That's really all they can do. And so we got to talking, and I was telling them about what she had been through the past year and the issues we were having with her stomach and everything. And I did say she does have the beginning stages of some kidney disease. I was told it was kidney insufficiency, not full on kidney, in the stages of kidney failure, but she does have some kidney issues too. And so they're like, well, we'll get the blood work from your vet's office when they open up their last blood work. And they said, "Do you want us to do an ultrasound on her stomach?" And I was like, "Yes, please," because I've been wanting my regular vet to do that. And that's what they had suggested early on. But weirdly enough, we never got back to that discussion. And so I was like, while she's here, while I'm here with her, I already knew I was going to have to take the day off because it was already like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Let's just go ahead and do it. And so waited a couple hours for that. And they come back, and unfortunately, they found a thickening of the intestine and a thickening of the wall of the stomach. And so that's usually indicative of either inflammation in the cat's intestines. It could be IBD, but it can also be lymphoma. And the fact that it was also in her stomach, and her stomach was pretty well thickened, was, is probably a sign that it's more than likely some type of cancer. And so I mean, I knew there was something else going on, but obviously to actually hear it confirmed was tough. The big problem is they obviously can't tell what for sure it is unless they do a biopsy. And they tried a needle aspirate biopsy where they basically tried to get some cells from her stomach wall to test. And they thought they could get them, but they were like, there's a good chance we can't get anything. And so the only way we're really going to be able to biopsy anything is to actually go in, and they want to do an endoscopy where they go in with a camera that takes little bits of her intestine and stomach. They send it off to biopsy. It would confirm if it's IBD, if it's lymphoma, or there was like some other type of sarcoma cancer that could be in her stomach that tends to be more aggressive than lymphoma. So there was a couple different possibilities there. And they're like, we could try the needle biopsy today if you want. And they said we would just lightly sedate her. And I said, yeah, let's go ahead. While we're here, let's go ahead and see if we can at least figure out what's going on in her stomach. And so another 2 or 3 hours. And unfortunately, they couldn't get anything. So I was talking to them about, options and next steps. And at first I was like, she's 16 at least, probably around 16. Probably, she seems like with the kidney disease and just with everything going on, probably they didn't mention anything about the stroke risk, oddly enough. I figured she'd be pretty risky to sedate like that because they have, the way they go in, they'd have to fully knock her out. And they're like, we'd have to figure out what type of cancer it is. And there is chemotherapy. Oh, yeah, here I was working my way through the picture, and Sidonia showed up and just absolutely refused to let me work on anything. Been having trouble with her too, but I'll talk about her in a minute. She's a little bit less, at least for now. She's bounced back the last few days, so I'm not as worried about her. But at first I was like, no, we're probably not going to do the biopsy. If it's lymphoma, or if it's like a lymphoma in her intestines and in her stomach, there's a couple different things you can do. Prednisone, steroid does kind of help. Can help, like, basically at this point, the whole goal is to buy her more quality of lifetime. At this point, there's no, hey, we're trying to figure out a way to completely get rid of the cancer and put her in remission. This is just at her age and given everything, even if we went with the chemotherapy route and she did well and went into remission, it's usually a very good chance that it comes back, especially in older cats like that. So really, we're just buying her time, like quality of lifetime. And depending on what we do and how we go about it. And I thought, at first I was like, we're probably not going to be able to do the biopsy. It's probably going to be really invasive. And last time they wanted to try to do that on Tiger for a similar issue with his intestines that we monitored but never seemed to get worse. So I think his was IBD. Again, they just don't know unless they go in. His was going to be pretty invasive. And so I thought they were talking about the same kind of surgery for her. And I'm like, there's no way, her recovery time, it'd be hard for her to recover from that and a risk to put her under and all this. But then when we got to talking about it and they were talking about the endoscopy, that's not as invasive with the camera and everything as like literally cutting into their like intestine and stuff like they were talking about doing with Tiger years ago. And when they were looking at their risk of, anesthetic, she on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the, highest risk of not surviving anesthesia, she's only a 2. So she's just slightly riskier at this point than a normal healthy cat would be. And they said they deal with cats that are level 2 and 3 all the time because they have an oncologist, they have an anesthesiologist that comes up with specific unique plans for each cat depending on the risk factors and stuff. So they're used to those risky type of surgeries. Like it would probably be safer for her to have something like that done there than somewhere else that doesn't have those types of dedicated people. And so the more we talked about it, the more I was like, she's honestly, for as frail she is, she's really spunky. She definitely hasn't acted like she acts like she doesn't feel well, but it's not been to the point where she just cringes in a corner and just looks miserable all the time and has no energy, doesn't want to interact with anybody. She's been very social, very, heck, I don't know if I've seen her play in the last few weeks, but just in the last month or two, I've seen her play a little bit. She gets to where she'll go scampering across the house and stuff, and, so she's spunky. And so with that and talking to them, I was like, maybe she could do this and be okay. And if we knew what it was, then, cats apparently, when I was looking online and doing research, cats apparently handle chemo very well, especially like when it's in pill form. You can just take it home and give it to the cat. You have to be careful of their kidneys, like with the steroids. You have to be careful of the kidneys and whatnot, but they actually handle it pretty well. And so I'm torn. I don't know what to do. I was leaning towards just what they call palliative care, doing the prednisone to see if that helps. Though we're not 100% sure if it's a lymphoma. If it's the other type, it's not going to help at all. But using, gabapentin and steroids and just doing palliative care and just, giving her as much quality life we can until, she just can't go anymore. And I was leaning towards that, but now I just wonder if she actually could do well with this and it would buy her a little more time. The reason I guess I feel guilty and I feel mad is this should have been found months ago. I should have pushed for an ultrasound when she wasn't 100% bouncing back. When we were getting to the point that, she's been in a maintain phase for about 6 months now. When she wasn't getting any better, I should have, instead of just assuming it was the pain, been like, can we at least look at her stomach? Because she does also have to have anti-nausea meds, and she'll throw up. If she doesn't get that every other day, she'll start throwing up, and obviously that's not, that surely is not tied to the pain. I guess it could be, but it just, I've been so busy with work, I just haven't. My husband's had to take her, and it just, I haven't, I don't feel like I've been as there much pushing for their care as I guess I would typically be. And not being a difficult, you know, I'm not saying being a difficult person at the vet or anything, but just going back and being like, hey, you guys mentioned an ultrasound a while back. Is that something we can go ahead and do? But if we had caught this months ago, like, I feel like she would be a better candidate for a biopsy and, like, you know, options and stuff. But I try not to beat myself up too much about that, because the thing is, I don't know. I don't know if they would have even picked it up if they had done it 6 months ago. I don't know if it is cancer, how, you know, quickly it's grown. There would be always a chance that they didn't catch it. And if they had done an ultrasound and found what they found at the specialist office at the emergency vet, they would have done exactly what I had to do. They would have said, you need to take her to a specialist in Nashville, probably referred them to me to them or Blue Pearl to look at biopsy options and stuff. I mean, we'd be doing the exact same thing we're doing now. It's just, it would have been sooner, and maybe it wouldn't be as bad as I'm afraid it is. Because I don't know if it's metastasized. I don't know if that's the reason she had a stroke. Like, if it's cancer, has it metastasized to her brain, to her lungs? They didn't do an x-ray, weirdly enough, on her lungs. That's something I'm going to ask my vet to do. But really all we know is she has something going on in her intestines and her stomach, and they acted like it was pretty extensive, but they didn't act like all was lost and like a biopsy wouldn't help. So I don't know. Again, every time I try to sit here and think about it, I always end up right at that, like, just 50-50. When I look at all the pros and cons, I just can't make up my mind. So it is not cheap. We're just going to say that's not cheap. And but I am fortunate that that is something that, if this is a good thing for her to do, that I am just not going to think twice about it, because that's one of the perks of the job I have. The job I took was a substantial pay increase from my previous job, and it's like, if nothing else, it allows me to do stuff like this with the cats and not have to worry about how I'm going to be able to pay for it. So, you know, that, but it's also kind of like, it's not, the cost isn't an issue, but it's also kind of like, I want to talk about how much of a gamble this is, how much, you know, this is really going to make a difference. I liked the vet's office in Nashville. I actually wish we lived a little closer. As much as I like my vet, I would be okay using these people as, these are the people I would go to as specialists. I don't think they were as expensive as Blue Pearl was, but I mean, they're still specialists, so it was still, you know, what I got quoted was pretty expensive. Though the whole visit for the emergency part of it actually, I had no idea what it was going to be, but it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't super cheap, but it wasn't like ridiculous. It wasn't ridiculous either. So I like them, but I also, you know, at the end of the day, I don't know these people very well. I like the vet a lot I was talking to, but then I'm also kind of like, hey, you know, this is also a business, and I'm not saying they're trying to sell me something that's not going to do any good, but I don't know these people well enough to know how much of this is genuinely they think she would do well, or they're just trying to sell me an expensive procedure. Um, so I said, can we try her on? So she would have to be off the steroid for 2 weeks before she could have it done, because if the steroid does shrink, if it's lymphoma and it does shrink it down, it'll be harder to get a biopsy on it um, if she's still on it. So she would have to be off the prednisone for 2 weeks before she could have the procedure. As we went along, I figured out it would take maybe a month and a half to get her in. That's kind of where how far out they're scheduling right now. And so I was like, I really don't want her to go to a month and a half without absolutely anything. So I was like, can we start her on the steroids? Do what we were going to do in terms of palliative care. And they gave her an appetite stimulant. Can we go ahead and start doing that? And then get her, let me talk to my regular vet, because I want my vet to see the ultrasound results. They're going to send all the records to my regular vet, and she's going to see what they found and to what extent it is and everything like that. And as frustrated as I am that we didn't do the ultrasound or whatever, I still do trust my vet a lot more than I do people I just met. So I trust my vet to be honest with me on this. And I was like, I'd rather meet with her and talk with her about this. So we have an appointment Wednesday. I'm going to go to so I can ask all my questions that I want to ask. And we're going to have an honest talk about it, because I want her to see like what they saw. And like I said, if maybe we do an x-ray, if it's metastasized, I don't know if and we see evidence of that, I don't know if it's worth putting her through all this, because I really truly don't know if chemo will buy her any extra time. And you also got to think the anesthesia and the chemo and the prednisone on her kidneys could kick her over into full-blown kidney failure before we even have to worry about the complications from the cancer. So there's a lot of factors here, and so I'm going to talk to the vet about it and see what she recommends, what she thinks, just based on what she's seen. Because like I said, I didn't really see my vet will typically show me what the ultrasound looks like or what the x-ray looks like, but they didn't show me that. So I really don't know for sure what all they found. It was more than a little, I know that, but I don't know if it was just everywhere or. So this is where my vet's going to have to come in. And I guess in the meantime, we are spoiling her endlessly, which we will do regardless. She got her own boneless chicken breast cooked in the oven. It's hard to get her to eat still, but she does love regular chicken and ham and stuff. And probably the healthiest thing for her is the chicken breast. So we cooked her own little chicken breast. And then anytime I go to eat and she's all in my face trying to steal some of my food, I heat her up her own little pieces of chicken, and she's happy as can be. She's doing really well. She stays on me all night, which to me, based on experience with the cats in the past, usually if they all of a sudden become super affectionate like that and constantly lay on me, that's usually a sign that they really don't feel good. So I am putting up with it as best I can. Probably not sleeping as well as I should, but I just don't have the heart to kick her off. She gets Serenia every other day. It's anti-nausea med. She gets gabapentin, the pain med, twice a day. I thought she was having some, with the recent steroid and appetite stimulant. I noticed she was having a little trouble in the litter box, with other things other than peeing. And so I don't know again if that's because of what's going on or if that's just because the influx of medicine dried her out more. So she now has to have lactulose once a day. We're just doing once a day right now. I think that's kept her fine. But yeah, pain meds twice a day, appetite stimulant. It's a lot. She gets the prednisone in the evenings, and I also give her a supplement when she eats that is supposed to help with digestion, like a natural supplement. And I figure it's not going to hurt her with everything going on right now. And she's hanging in there. In some ways, she's doing better in Sedonia, in terms of eating and activity level, and which is very odd. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I will have more answers, I guess, on Wednesday. I may have some more to talk about next weekend. So all I know is she is getting whatever her little heart desires. She does not seem to be in pain. She does not seem to be super uncomfortable. She's up in the windows, napping in the sun. She's still climbing to the top of the closet. She's hopping up on and down off of stuff. So, and she seems like she's completely back. She's a little, again, wobbly from the gabapentin, but she seems completely back to normal for the most part. So, if she did have a stroke, she's already mostly recovered from it. So, and like I said, they didn't seem to think that was a risk factor at all for sedating her. So I don't know. So yeah, that was the biggie this week. And like I said, I just, more than anything, I feel guilty because if we had got this sooner, maybe it would be an easier decision than it is. But I don't know. She's been frail for a long time. Like I said, she's been maintaining pretty well for about 6 months now. And so I don't know if it would have made a difference if we did it 6 months ago or not. I really don't. So who knows? But so yeah, my white gel pen was not doing as well as I thought it should. Oh, I knew I wanted to put highlights on this, but I still don't feel like I do highlights well. So here, however, is the final picture. And as you can see, there's a huge difference when I do this in regular lighting. You can see the pastel pencil a whole lot better. And yeah, I still don't like my highlights, but it's good enough. I'm really glad I added the pencil to it. I knew that was going to happen. I was going to put the marker to it and then at the end be like, this will look a lot better if I add the pastel pencil. And it does. Every time I do that, I'm never disappointed in the results. So he turned out super cute, and really pleased that I was able to finish this off. Again, I'm struggling because I want to color, but I also want to play computer games, so I don't really know what I'm going to do. I do know I need to go eat, but quickly I'm going to tell you guys. So Sidonia, I had said she had to go stay at the vet a couple weeks ago. She come home, she was eating really well there for about 3 or 4 days, and then started giving us trouble again. And so we added an appetite stimulant to her medicine as well, and she had been starting to get the gabapentin as well. And they know she has like chronic pancreatitis, so we know that she's got a little more going on than like Scamper does or whatever. She also has this weird cough that, like, if we give her antibiotics it goes away, but then it ends up coming back, and it's come back in the past week or whatever. And I have just had a devil of a time trying to get her to eat. And what's weird is it's almost like she forgets how to eat wet food. And it's almost like that, because she'll all of a sudden just get to the point she's hardly eating wet food. I had to put a camera on the dry food bowl so I could make sure she was at least getting some dry food. But she's already dropped a couple ounces. She's back under 6 pounds again. And she doesn't have an appointment until the 20th for a checkup. So the other night I just got really frustrated, and so I pulled out some KD Hills and did a syringe feed with her. Small amount, because she has been eating so little. I don't want to put too much on her stomach. But it was weird. It was like that just flipped a switch for her. Ever since then, she's been actually eating wet food. She's been around us, like y'all saw earlier. She got up on the desk and just would not leave me alone till I pet on her. she's been having a really good couple days. So it's like, I don't understand what's going on with her either. And so at this point, we're just trying to get her to, get her consistent. And she's not. And that's, like I said, Scamper's been more consistent with eating than she has. And that's surprising given the massive difference in issues between the two of them. So she doesn't go until the 20th. I'm trying because next week I really have, that appointment with Scamper and stuff going on. I would really like to try to get Sidonia at least consistent and keep maintaining her weight. But if she drops any more, I'm just going to have to take her back in. Maybe, I guess, if she gets to the point she's not eating wet food as much, I just syringe feed her and see what happens, and maybe she just picks it right back up. I don't know. I hope that doesn't mean that there's like something going on neurologically or something where she's like forgetting how to eat wet food, because she's coming and eating dry food. So it's not that she's. We had that happen with Oreo. We think he had some sort of cancer or something going on in his brain, like a brain tumor, because he forgot how to drink water at the end and couldn't sleep, and it was brutal. I felt so bad for that poor guy. um definitely didn't definitely made sure we could help him out so he didn't suffer with that for too long. But like, I hope to goodness this is not the direction she's going, but it's just weird. I don't know. She's getting Serenia every day, she's getting gabapentin twice a day. I don't know. I just know that right now, cats not eating is like number one on my list of stress. And nothing, as I've said before, nothing ruins my day like a cat suddenly deciding they're not going to eat, and dealing with that a lot right now. So, yeah, sorry. I know y'all are still looking at the finished picture. Just still had a lot to talk about. Well, oddly enough, I didn't have enough footage this time, which is very unusual. Um, yeah, so other than that, we've been watching The Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime. That the second season of that just released. We have two more episodes in the season. They just released the last three this Friday. It's very good if you like fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. Highly recommend that if you have Amazon Prime. I'm so disgusted with Netflix canceling stuff right now, like, because they canceled Inside Job, which was one of the animated shows I really liked watching. Just terrified that Prime's gonna cancel Vox Machina, because I keep losing the shows that I love because they get canceled. And I'm getting rid of Netflix. It has nothing to do with the password sharing because I don't do that anyway, but um, I am tired of falling in love with shows on their channel or on their streaming platform just to have them canceled after a season or two. I don't really care what their business model is. And people want to argue and say, well, it's because the second and third seasons aren't as profitable, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. It's a bad user experience. I don't care what their excuse is. And it seemed like they just want people to unsubscribe from them right now. Between that and the password sharing rules, like, what are they even doing? I don't understand. So it's not worth it. Really, the only thing I like Bridgerton really well. And I like The Witcher, though the fact that Henry Cavill is left, I have no desire to watch any more of The Witcher that he's not a part of. So at this point, it's like, I like Bridgerton, but I don't love it enough to keep it just for the one show. And like I said, I'm tired of enjoying new shows and then having them canceled. So I'm getting rid of it. I've had it for over 15 years. I was getting DVDs in the mail when they were the thing. But they've just officially lost me. So, but we've been doing that. I've been doing a lot of watching episodes of The Simpsons again. Just, it's like a comfort show for me. So, I was listening to the Outlander series on audiobook. Was really, that first, man, those books are whoppers too. I love the show, but the show got a little slow paced for me. And I think like after the fourth or fifth season, I stopped watching it. And it's kind of happening with the books too. Like I really like the books, but I'm like, I guess 2/3 of the way through the first book, and it's just getting slow. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of patience for stuff lately. It's hard for things to keep my attention. I'm trying to think if I've been playing a lot of Power Wash Simulator on Steam. Not a thought intensive game. You just power wash a bunch of stuff and make money doing it, and it's oddly soothing, I guess, because it's simple work. You like clean a sidewalk and it's nice and clean, and it's kind of scratches that itch in your brain without having to really think about anything. um, yeah, I have Lego stuff to put together. I have wooples to crochet. I have all kinds of stuff to color and do, and I've just had zero energy for any of it. And about the time I get energy is when the week starts and all the energy goes to work. So it's not been a good start to the year. Watching or paying attention to the news and Twitter is not helping me in any way, shape, or form. It is making things worse, because things are certainly not looking great across the board anywhere. Um, I can't think of one single thing that I think's going well right now in regards to just life in general. Um, oh my gosh. Anyway, so that's been pretty much it. I was trying to think if there was anything else. No, not really. So I got a couple of books that are coming in Tuesday. The new Alexander Francis Kauai book, and I did buy Lulu Mayo's newest book, the Kauai Tarot. Tarot, I think is how you pronounce that. Um, so I'll have those to flip through in the middle of the week. Don't know what we're doing past that point. Got to see how the week is going to play out. So, y'all, right now, this is how videos are going to go. I get some time. I have books to show you guys and stuff. You'll probably get, 2 or 3 videos from me at a time, and then it might go a couple weeks before you get more or something. But that's the best I can do right now. So that's what we're going to keeping on with. But I am starving. I'm going to go. Oh, yeah. So, like yesterday, we actually went out yesterday. Went to the town next to us. They have a comic book store. And my husband had been wanting to go back and take some time to look through and pick up some new comics to read. And so I let him do that. And it's on the square in town, so they have like specialty shops all around. So I was kind of wandering in some of them. They had a couple boutique shops that are like just not my thing, not my style of clothes, not my style at all. So I was kind of like bleh. Then I went to the third one, and it was like a fancy foodie store, which we typically don't do. We're not super fancy foodie people. However, I had more fun in that store looking at the different stuff. They had a cast iron conditioner thing I picked up, a jar of it. We like using our cast iron a lot, but it's a pain to keep it oiled and everything. And this is supposed to like really make it even non-stick. So I'm curious to see if it'll work. And I got some fancy jam for toast to try. And then they had an artist gallery type store, and they had these really cool paintings. Oh, they had this Black Panther on canvas for like, the paintings weren't priced like crazy. This was like $100, and I was like, oh, I really want it, but we have so many things to put up on the wall that like we don't have enough wall space for everything. So I have to be really conscious about art now when I buy it, because we just have so much other stuff on the walls that it has to have a specific place to go. They had one of those and a really neat one of the Mandalorian and Grogu. It was a little bit smaller, but I still couldn't figure out where I wanted to put it. So they had a fancy, like sulfate free soaps, handmade soaps that somebody was selling in a booth there. And I picked up one that just smells amazing. I'm allergic to sulfa, so any type of sulfates cause me to itch horrifically. So like cheaper shampoos and body washes I can't do because of that. So I was curious. I have sulfate-free shampoo, but I don't have soap like that. So I'm curious to see if that will help a little bit with like general itchiness and dry skin. We'll see. But we did that. We went and did a massive restock of groceries at Walmart. We did a grocery pickup, which I felt kind of guilty about because I struggle with that. So it was like a really big pickup. We did a lot of restocking of our groceries. And I hate it because I know people at Walmart aren't paid enough. And I've tried to tip before and they won't let them take tips, which sucks. And I just hate to make because I know there's a lot of pickup orders and I just hate to make them, have to pick out all those groceries. But I also have to come to the realization that I just cannot go in a grocery store for a long period of time and shop anymore. I just can't do it. I don't have the energy or the capability to do that. Like, there's no way we could have done a big grocery shop like that ourselves. I wouldn't have been able to stand it. I would have lasted maybe an hour and I would have had to just, as it was, just picking up the groceries, coming home and putting them away, and then doing the few errands we did was enough to just exhaust me. So it's like I know the service is there for stuff like that in situations like that, but I also just feel guilty because I know I'm making people's jobs harder. But I also have to be real about what limited energy I have and what I can and can't do. And like I said, by the time we got home and put all the groceries up, I was exhausted. But we actually stopped and picked up food from Logan's Roadhouse to eat. Where we live, we only have a few fast food options and like a few little sit down restaurants. We have 3 Mexican restaurants in a town of 1,000 people. It's ridiculous. I love Mexican food, and we still go to the one that was the original one. Like, we haven't even tried the other two because the original one's great. Why? And we only do takeout as it is. We don't go dine places because we still mask up and we don't do dining in like that. So we did take out anytime we're in this other town. It's got all the big restaurants and stuff, so we splurged a bit, and I got this amazing mushroom burger from Logan's, and I've got waffle fries left in there. I'm gonna go stick in the air fryer and heat up. I'm starving, so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys go. um I hope you guys have a good start to the week. I hope you're having a better time of it than we are right now. And yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I had a really good time putting this picture together. Wish the color in chat had been a little more positive going along with this nice fun springtime picture, but I got got to work with what I have, right? So anyway, thanks guys for watching, and bye for now.